Welcome everyone to Monday with Masami, and today is November 23rd. Okay, so we have just a little over a week to go. No, just a week, right? Because the 30th. Yeah, the full moon eclipse is on the 30th, everyone. And some of you are probably already feeling the energy from that one. That one's going to be a pretty strong one. And I will talk a little bit about that. But I just wanted to start with a quote that I saw this morning. It says, "Love is a feeling, and we cannot feel it as long as we devalue the body's most subtle messages." And it's Robert K. Hall. So love is a feeling, and we cannot feel it as long as we devalue the body's most subtle messages. And I think this is going to be very important. I don't think it was just a coincidence that I picked this quote today that came to me, because we are heading officially into the holiday season. And for those of you that live in Europe or Australia, New Zealand, even in Japan and things like that, we're not officially going into holidays like in the United States with Thanksgiving, but there's a shift going on. Moods are changing. And this week is going to be very important for all of us. At the end, I'm going to pull an oracle card also, but to really tune into the subtle heart energy. So Chris and I have been talking a lot about heart energy this week, this past weekend, just to, kind of have a conversation about like, what are we going to share on Monday? And, he will talk a little bit more about heart also, but we've been working so hard this year with the idea of how do we shed our old belief systems, our old patterns. Since about May, we've been working on this. And particularly for those of you that have been following me over the summer and this fall, we've been working on old narratives, old ego, just your old patterns, like where you get stuck, where your rigidity shows up, or what fires together wires together, right? So in your brain, so what are some of your neurons that you're stuck in the same mode? So many of you have been doing such a great, amazing work. But what that does to us too also creates a little bit of a void, right? So the nature abhors vacuum. So we like to fill it, so the moment you start to introduce yourself to a new patterns or new way of looking at life, your body is going to go into a little bit of a panic. Not the body, I'm sorry, the mind does. And the mind wants to fill it with something very familiar or something that's like, oh, I've done that before. And then I know that worked then, so it must work now, kind of a thing. Even though you're no longer the same person as even 2 hours ago. Your kidneys have cleaned out your blood 15 times by now in an hour. So we have a hard time introducing ourselves to the new patterns. So it's been a tough journey to really shed your old patterns, shed your narratives and in your belief systems and the things that you thought was you. But now you want to gently, and the kindly is the important word. That's been the theme since last week also. It's that be kind, be kind, be kind. Be kind with the gentle introduction of new belief system. Okay. What do you believe to be true that is not based on what the world tells you or what even I tell you, okay, or your doctor tells you, or what your parents told you, your teachers told you, or your friends tell you, your spouses tell you? But what is it that you truly believe that you're capable of? Who are you really? So reestablish slowly about your belief system, about your capacity, your truth, okay? Because this eclipse on Monday, which will start to really impact us this weekend, even from Thursday on, but Sunday is going to be very important, that you want to start to have a sense of who am I as a new belief system, okay? You get to change the course of your life all the time, okay? I have this like a postcard that I picked up in my early 20s in Japan. That postcard irritated me. Okay, so I'll tell you what the postcard said. The postcard had several mountains drawn on it and was like a cartoon drawing. And this guy was going up the mountain and then down and going up to another one, obviously, right? And the words in Japanese said, you get to create your life over and over again. And I thought, oh, that's such a BS. I thought you just get a one shot, you failed it, you're done. That's kind of the mindset that I grew up with, right? It's like, if you don't make this right, you're just never gonna, change the course of your life. I mean, Japanese educational system is built that way. When you're in ninth grade, your life is pretty much kind of set on stone. Like they would choose which high school you get to go to depending on your academic scores and whatnot. I mean, you're only like 15, 16 years old. And you pretty much know if you're going to go to 4-year college, or whether you're going to become a blue collar workers, or whether you're going to be white collar workers, or whatever that may be. You're just basically put into this the road, right? And it's very difficult to come off of that. So I'm forever grateful that my parents plucked me out at that point in my age and said, you're going to the United States. But but when I saw that little animated mountains, which you get to, recreate your life over and over again, I thought, I'm not sure about that, but I'm going to keep the postcard. So I actually bought the postcard and posted it. And as I live my life and as I get a little bit wiser than maybe last year, just a tiny bit, I'm starting to believe that. And trust me when I say this, everyone, we are truly co-creating our lives. Okay. There's so many, energetic fields and in your ancestors and cosmic energy, they all want to conspire together to make your life a different path, different way that you want to create. But you've got to believe that. And most of us are taught that, but we really don't believe it in the heart. You know it. You don't believe it. Most of us think that's probably true, but co-creation is not for me. Or I believe it up to this point, but I don't fully believe it. We give some kind of reasoning or rules around it. So I want you to really live this week from the heart-centered place gently and start to change the belief system and start to fill in that void that you've created since about May. Because you've been releasing. And several of you have emailed me and said you've done some ceremonies around it. You wrote up your old patterns, you burnt it, you released it. So you've done that. But now that void has to be filled with a new nourishment, new way of looking at your life. So let's just all pause and just feel into that. What can you do this week? And do this before if you're visiting your families or old friends or whatever, and having your Thanksgiving dinner if you're in the United States, before they plug you in that void with their belief system, because they're always ready to tell you who you are, aren't they? They're always ready to tell you to plug it in with their belief system. So before they do that, you fill it. Okay. So when you encounter them, you could say, thank you for your belief systems, but I have already filled it with mine, and I have chosen to be different than what it used to be. Okay. That's where we're headed, everyone, for next 11 years, because in Chinese zodiac system, we started our brand new 12-year cycle this year. Okay. This was the first year of that. So you got 11 more years to really co-create something totally different than what you used to have 12 years ago. Okay. So I always remind people, beginning of 2020, I said to everyone, I bet you everybody knows what 12 years ago was like. That was right around the economy was crashing. Okay. Things were falling apart in so many areas. We all remember that. Okay. And that was a tremendous things that we all needed to go through as a nation, as individuals, as globally. And then now we're going through another round of it this time, right? It's kind of, it feels right to me. Every 12 years, there's a cycle in a Chinese world, or, you know, Eastern Asian philosophy. So I kind of prepare myself. And this is the year of rat. And I was born on the year of rat. And the rats are basically, they're resourceful. You know, we can just about live anywhere. We will go collect things, and then we're a very social animal. I don't know you knew that about rats, but we protect each other, we support one another, we go get the resources for each other, and then we create big family. Okay, so look for that resources, look for the connection, whether it's virtually like we're doing. You know, remember, Monday with Masami isn't my monologue, right? This is a Sangha where we come together and see if we can nourish each other. So I'm going to pause for a moment here. Chris, you want to add a little bit about this heart-centered week that we're going to be entering into?
Yeah, a couple of things that come to mind for me is that when we talk about the heart, you spoke to this somewhat, but it's about possibilities. And so one of the things that we have to look at is when we're imagining what is possible, that really makes up, it's not just our belief, but it's our whole mindset. It becomes our worldview. And so if we have an idea that, oh, I could never do this, I'd really like to, but I just know that's not for me. If we start limiting ourselves in that way, then we start limiting our possibilities. And something that, you know, if we're trying to change something about what has happened in the past in our lives, we're trying to change a pattern, we have to be able to see how we got here. We have to know how we got to this point. And if we are not paying attention to that, we're not going to see the fact that so much of the time life just goes by. We're adapting in real time. And so if we're not watching closely, we're just going to start falling into a drum beat and have an automated sort of reaction to life happening around us. We just become something of an automated reaction to what's happening around us. So we really have to open ourselves. And I think that's where part of this conversation about the heart center comes from. And do you want me to say any more about that now or come back to it later?
It's fine. Let's continue with a little bit of a heart center things, because like I said, we're entering into a very heart opening week. So that could also mean that we feel a little vulnerable too, if you don't have a clear understanding of what your belief system is, what you believe in yourself. And this is, I'm sorry, Chris, I'm just going to interject a few words and you can get on, but I think that this is the week, for the first time in months, everyone, we get to actually kind of think about our own boundaries, our own heart center, our own inner needs, much more so than a collective level and political level and, just the societal level. Because I feel like, wow, that's an area that I haven't actually gone into a lot this year, because there's been so much collective sadness, collective grief, collective shifts, political shifts that we're getting pulled into. So this week is actually, you get to come home to you a little bit. So enjoy that too. It'll feel a little bit weird for all of us, I think. We'll feel like, gosh, we haven't visited me. I haven't visited me in a long time. I haven't listened to that subtle energetic field. I haven't listened to the subtle movements of the chakras. I haven't listened to the wheels turning in chakras, or I haven't had the conversation deeply with my heart. Okay. So this is a very important opportunity for next several days to spend time in your heart center as much as you can. Yeah. And yeah, go ahead, Chris.
So I wanted to bring it back to this idea of the heart center is something that, in a lot of traditions, but one I'm familiar with is some of the Sufi traditions, that the heart is often described as being an I or having an I. So there's this subtle center here. It's referred to often as the eye of the heart. And I've over the years have come to understand it as almost the ear of the heart, because the heart has this listening quality to it, and it's something that we give and take, but we're constantly taking in the signals from the world. We're constantly feeling them come at us and to us. And so this thing I was just mentioning a moment ago about how we hold ourselves and our beliefs and our mindsets really shaping our openness and our sense of what is possible for us in our lives is very much connected to this heart center. And I think that one of the ideas that's really fascinating to me about the heart is that if you start to think of the heart as almost like the center of an electrical grid, this is the place where the big surges of energy and electricity come it's almost violent. They almost come smashing through at high speeds and high volumes. And so we have to be able to have our heart center prepared and able to take the flow that's coming at us. And that takes constant attention, constant care. And so we have to cultivate that as almost like the first gate, like that first domain of our heart really has to be strong. And it hurts a lot of the time to, allow these things to enter so that we can continue to build that capacity up. But once we get our heart center to the point where we can really feel what's going on in the world around us without blocking it, we can accept it as it is, then we can start letting more of that energy go to the other centers of our being. You think of them as chakras or otherwise, but we're essentially building the circuitry of our ability to work with the energies of the world with our own inner realities and energies.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, and then he calls the, third eye might be, well, it's a place to see, right? And Chris and I were talking about the third eye and then maybe third ear, like listening at your heart center. But this is the week that you may need to just sit down and write up some of the things that have been coming into your third eye and then your heart center that you've picked up over the years in your life that no longer serves you. So things like, money doesn't grow on a tree. Okay, that's something that we heard, right? And really penetrated our heart with it. Or maybe visually you witnessed things not working out in your parents' marriage, or maybe, jobs or creativity things, and you witness things. And so sometimes, I feel like the third eye needs a little cleanup. It's like a, windshield wiper, needs to be changed too. And then you actually need to sometimes take your third eye and the third ear to a car cleaning place, and then just wash it down and renew some of the things you've picked up and heard and seen all your life that you were told that, no, you won't amount to be that, or no, you're not creative artist, you should just pursue medicine, or you should do this instead of that, or you were told some things all your life and you believed it and you saw it too. So then, believing is seen, but Chris and I often say seeing becomes believing, right? You've seen it over and over. You've heard it over and over. So you start to believe it. So take your time this week to really cultivate new, innovative way. How do you want to live the next 11 years of this cycle that you're in? And, every school of thoughts have their own rhythms, but, I generally go by that Chinese zodiac rhythm. So making a commitment this week for the new beliefs around who you are and who you want to become, and make that as your number one goal to be. Okay. And then that comes with this boundary idea that I wanted to talk about a little bit. Okay. So there's multidimensional boundaries. And what I mean by multidimensional boundaries is that for someone like me, like earlier session, somebody's relatives came into the session, and I had to just kind of work with that entity as well as the person that I was working with. And so I have to create a very clear boundaries around that so that they can't just take over the session, because sometimes they got so much to say. They forget that I'm doing the session for the person that signed up for this, okay, and live on this earth still. So multidimensional boundaries is that you want to carry yourself so strongly inside you, and this healthy boundary, so you can say, yes, thank you for showing up, but you only get to be here for 90-minute sessions, and then after that you must leave. That's another, one of the multidimensional things. But other boundaries are with your families, with your spouses, and even with yourself. You need to have some kind of boundaries sometimes with your, maybe changing the habits of your eating habits and things like that. You need to work on your boundaries. But one of the things I've noticed about multidimensional boundaries, so I'm going to just talk a little bit more outside of just the physiology, but when you are one of those people that are very sensitive to other spirits or energies or other fields, or you come to me and say, I want to become as intuitive as you are, and then can you show me or teach me? Okay. I always have to come back to your physiology first, because if you're low on nutrients and minerals, okay, such as B vitamins or minerals like magnesium, and then also even things like chromium can do some, damage if you don't have enough of it, okay? And then other things like if you don't have enough zinc and you're overall malnourished, your boundaries become permeable, okay? And this is when you're going to pick up other entities that you feel like, gosh, am I feeling them or am I feeling me? So those kind of starts to get blur. And that same thing's going to start to happen even you just go to a grocery store and pick up somebody else's entity. I mean, growing up in Japan, we kind of just believe that everybody carries their, not just your own field of energy, but you got your ancestors hanging out right behind you, So you don't just go into a situation and think that you're just having a one conversation with that person. And that person's also going to bring tons of archetypes with them too. So you're never alone. You got archetypes, you got entities, you got energies, you got other people's things you picked up. So in order for you to have a really clear, healthy boundaries, you have to look into how you're nourishing yourself first, okay? If you're malnourished, undernourished, you're going to have a harder time because you don't have enough energy in you to sort it out or say no to certain things, yes to certain things, to cultivate the discipline of discernment. Okay, it requires a lot of energy on your part. So make sure that you know that you're co-creating this life with all these other things, as well as your inner knowing, as well as your destiny. But you are the center of co-creation. You need to know exactly what you believe, what you want, and are you nourished? Do you have enough energy to decipher? Otherwise, they can suck you dry. And this is, when a lot of people talk about vampires, energy vampires and so on and so forth. But I think we need to work on our own selves first. I believe that you need to cultivate your inner energy first before you start to kind of chop people off and say, you're a vampire, see you later. Or, I used to do that. I used to be one of those boundary builders, I draw the line so black and white that Chris will be like, how could you be so like a Japanese sword that would cut through things, And because I didn't have energy. I had no energy to deal with certain people, so I would cut them off. But now that I'm much better, now that I'm healing, now that I have a lot more energy inside me, I don't do that anymore. I have a little bit more softer edge to it. That's because I have energy inside. But when it comes to saying no, certain things, I will. And some of you have received emails like that from me also that would say, if this isn't going to work, I'm more than happy to just step out. You choose the path that you're on till you're ready to come back and see me. That's fine. Okay. But you get to have compassion and also firmness. And that's something that the Chris and I talked about the real beautiful sword in Japan. One of those samurai swords. They're ancient swords. They're made out of, and I will have Chris talk about it a little bit, but they're made out of 2 elements. And I forgot the 2 elements. So Chris, go on.
You sword talk. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one is an interesting topic because there's something very unique about Japanese swordsmiths that they figured out, that in order for a sword to be a sword and to work for the ways that it was designed to work, it had to have 2 qualities. It had to be strong and it had to be sharp. So in other words, it couldn't break when they used.
No, Chris, it was strong and flexible, wasn't it?
Yeah, sorry, sharp and flexible.
Okay, let's say it again. 2 qualities.
Yeah, it's sharp and flexible. So the strong comes with the sharpness. So sharp and flexible. And they figured out that the way to do that was to marry together 2 completely different types of steel. So the cutting edge is the sharp, hard edge. And then the backside, the not sharp side, is the flexible part. And what they realize is if you have all flexible, then you've got a wobbly sword that can't really cut anything very well. But if you have something that's super sharp and really hard, it's going to be prone to shatter if it hits something solid. And so they figured out how to marry these 2 properties together to make this perfect sword. And that's why they have the curve on them, because when they marry them together and they cool them down, they flex. And so it creates this marriage between flexibility and sharpness. If I could just add to that this thing about making sure that you get what you need. A lot of times we encounter people that they just don't believe, back to belief. They don't believe that either they can do the thing that we're recommending, or that it will work, or if it's the thing that they think that they're looking for right now. And so one thing I want to say about that is that sometimes, we've heard that phrase, fake it till you make it. But sometimes we have to almost pretend that we actually believe this thing is possible for us. And it may sound crazy to say it this way, but this is actually how our brain works, is if we can pretend that we believe that this path will work, we actually then open ourselves up to the possibility that it will work for us. And so that's an important thing to do as we're adopting and adapting to new habits, new ways that the world is working and moving around us. And so I know Masami has some other things to say. Did you want to talk about those 3 H's?
Let me finish the boundaries, and then let's talk about that. So just a kind of a couple more things about boundaries. So you will have a hard time sticking with your boundaries, or you'll become permeable to outside energies if you're malnourished and undernourished. So one of the main supplements that I do look into is thiamine. So it's B1 as well as B6. Okay. Zinc is very important for that. If you feel like you're having a permeable boundaries, definitely look into those. Okay. But if you're starting to have multidimensional boundary issues, meaning you're starting to have spirits that will come through you at night, and so it's no longer human energetic fields, but we're starting to go into the next element of it. Sorry, then you really need to work on mineral contents as well, because when you're getting impacted by it in a negative way, that means your malnourishment and undernourishment has gone even further. Okay. So just come back to, how do I nourish my body? Okay. Nothing wrong with having the abilities like I do to connect with different dimensional things. Nothing's wrong. Okay. But it's when they start to take over your life, or they start to dictate you. That's when they're letting their belief system take over your space. Okay. That is when you need to do a car wash of your third eye, and then your third, ear that is in your heart, and then reestablish your belief systems. And then you got to start to nourish your body side. And then I wrote a couple notes about this. Oh yeah. So in order to discern which energy is mine and which energy is somebody else's. Okay, a lot of people ask me that as an empath, right? It comes from the muscles of discernment, right? One of the ways that you want to cultivate your discernment isn't just the mental work, okay? But what I noticed from all my clients, and including myself, is that when your bile, okay, the liver produces bile, when the bile is sluggish and bile is sludgy and bile is not flowing through your body, okay, this is when you're going to have a harder time distinguishing the outside energy versus inside energy, and you're going to get tired out from other people's field of energy, okay? So this is where you want to work on your liver and gallbladder health, right? You may want to start doing some liver detox tea kind of thing that has milk thistle in it. It maybe has dandelion roots in it. Maybe incorporate that kind of herbal teas into your daily habits. So that's going to be important. And I also, the bile, when the bile is stuck and then they're not flowing through, what I often see is the rigidity side of the boundaries and not the flexibility side of the boundaries. They get very rigid and say, well, this is how I want my diet to look like. Or they get into the isms. So as many of you know, I don't do diets, okay? I just nourish my body. I don't stick with any kind of a particular school of thoughts. I don't go into ketogenic. I don't do the paleo only. I don't do the vegetarian. I don't just do the vegan. I don't just do the fruitarian. I just nourish my body depending on the season, depending on my needs for that day. So I listen to the subtle voices that's coming through me. But I wasn't always like this, okay? I was very rigid with my eating. But that's when I was having a lot of problems with emulsifying my fats and digesting fats. And I was having all kinds of constipation and digestive issues. Okay. So that rigidity often comes from unable to emulsify. Emulsification is like making a beautiful salad dressing so that the fats and the water component, they can mix together. Vinegar and oil can mix together, right? That's what makes the beautiful consistency. That's what you want your body to experience, not such a rigid separation. Okay. So just check in with yourself. If you're starting to get a little rigid with your way of doing things, and then you say, I know I'm supposed to be seasonal with my life, but I just can't. I'm going to stick with this. Well, there's a rigidity around the bile. Okay, so you may want to do some liver gallbladder meditations, or like I said, doing some liver detox tea. And I will go into much more detail on the 4Bs live call that's going to start on December 1st. So if you haven't signed up, please do just go to my website under courses. So masamicovey.com under courses, and you see 4B live calls. Okay, and we'll go into it, but I just wanted to mention that because I realized that when I was having a hard time with my digestion, particularly with the bile, I became really strict with boundaries with the food, also calorie counting. And then I used to cut people off as in like, I don't want to talk with you anymore, that kind of thing. I was very clear about that. Too much. I became super rigid. And I started to feel like no one understood me, but I was creating that environment within me. No one understands me. I'm an outsider. I get singled out, things like that. That's because I wasn't emulsifying within me. I hope that makes sense, everyone. Okay. So, okay, Chris, you wanna?
I was going to just remind everyone, some of you have heard this because we've said it on a previous call, might have been a couple weeks back, but the original meaning of diet. So Masami says, I don't subscribe to a diet. We don't follow a diet, but this is the way that we look at diet, is that the word diet comes from this old Greek word from ancient Greece, diaeta, which meant everything you do in a day. And so that's what we look at. We're looking at all of the components of the day, your relationships, your stress levels, your job, the people and environments around you. And of course, what you eat and what you drink and how much sleep you got, and all of those things play into it. But we have to remember that that daily diet is something that adds up and takes shape over time. It's something that we can then start to measure the consequences of. And that's what we start to call later on illnesses, or even, disease conditions, if we're doing something that's out of balance in our day to day over a long time. So that's just something that I wanted to come back and remind everybody about.
Mm-hmm. This jumps the topic a little bit, and then we can go to 3 H's, because I think it'll be helpful for everyone as we go into holiday season. But, this year has been challenging for all of us, right? And felt like we're kind of walking through the mud. But I always try to remember that, if you didn't have mud, there would be no lotus. So it's like no mud, no lotus. Because as you know, the lotus flowers grow, and if you've ever seen lotus flowers up close, I mean, it is the most magnificent flowers to see, right? But they grow out of the muddiest, dirtiest water. And they go through and purify it as it comes up, and then opens up. And so that's kind of what I envision what's happening right now, is that we know we're all in the mud together, but it's up to you to convert that into the lotus flower. And so the lotus flower is also very symbolic for heart opening. Okay. It's a channel of the heart, that the unfolding of the petals. Okay. So like I said early on, I'm excited for this week because it's time for you to come home to your heart center. Many of you have been sending the heart out. Many of you have been putting the light out. And I'm so grateful you all been doing that. And I've been doing that. And I've encouraged all of you, if you have energy, send the light out. And this week, please take some time to go inward and shine that light within you, so you can really start to get to know you again, have a relationship with yourself again. It's a nice homecoming kind of a week. And as you do that, the full moon eclipse is going to be super powerful for you, because that is kind of the end result, the beauty in the sky that eclipses at the same time also. It's incredible this year, okay? This is the 4th eclipse or something, It's super powerful, this one. So this is when you get to really fully come home to your inner heart center, because we're all here to experience life through heart. We know that, right? So no mud, no lotus, everyone. And, one thing that I wanted to mention is the quote that I've mentioned before, but it's a Japanese proverb. And I think it's worth revisiting, because when we think about our belief system or our vision, we don't put it into action. And this is the week that you put your ideas and images and in your belief system into maybe write it down, put it into action. What is it that you envision in your life? So Japanese proverb goes like this: vision without action is a daydream. Vision without action is a daydream. Action without vision is a nightmare. Action without vision is a nightmare. Right. So before you can, I'm getting a chills right now, because I know I was supposed to say that to everyone. So before you take that action, okay, really sit with your vision. Open up your third eye. Open up your heart center. Really listen in to who are you becoming? Who do you want to become? That is not based on what others told you, not based on your, status, not based on where you grew up, not based on your ethnicity. It's nothing to do with any of that. Just if you were to vision who you are, what would that be? Okay. Then you take that action. So action without vision is a nightmare. So let's not have a nightmare, everyone. Okay. And in order to take the action, you need to have a nourishment in the body, particularly micronutrients like vitamins and minerals. And so many of us are low on zinc, magnesium, and a lot of the B vitamins. Okay. All right. So let's go into the 3 H's, Chris.
So I have to give a little background to the 3 H's because they're not very old. In fact, last night I didn't sleep very well. I woke up at about 1:30 a.m. and wasn't able to go back to sleep. But sometimes when you have those strange sleepless nights, you also have some moments of inspiration. And some of these things that Masami and I have been talking about that have to do with the heart, we're talking a lot about how the heart interacts with our other ways of discerning and knowing. And so somehow it morphed into these 3 H's. For some reason, we have a tendency to group things into little lists like this. But the 3 H's that came in the middle of the night last night were, and I'm realizing that these might be the 3 H's that help to guide us home in ourselves. But they're the head, the heart, and the Hara, which is Hara, the Japanese word. And it kind of means the gut, like the gut area, the lower abdomen, that area physically, but it's also like the energetic center of your being. And so if you put these things together, what are we listening to? This is where this question, I think this is what fueled this, is we were talking over the last few days about what are we listening to? What signals are we getting from our life? And so when you look at what the head is saying, the head is often our ego speaking. It's our mind talking. And it's our identity. It's who we see ourselves to be in the world and how we want the world to see us. And so from that standpoint, the head is often talking about want, and it's talking about preferences. It's things I like, things I don't like. I want this, I don't want that. And so that's useful information at times, but it can also get us trapped if that's all we're listening to, because we'll just get caught up in what we want, and it's not necessarily responsive to what's going on in the time that's happening right now. I don't really want what's happening right now in the world to be my reality, but it is. And so I don't get to choose that. So my mind is a little dissatisfied on that level. But then I move down to the heart, and the heart, well, the heart sees possibilities. We talked about that a little bit earlier. And we might also say that the heart speaks of hope, and it might even speak in terms of what we wish for ourselves and others. And on the, I don't want to call it negative, but on the side where we can sometimes be self-sabotaging around this heart quality of wishing is something that we sometimes describe it as somebody having a health wish. And that's contrasting it with making a firm commitment about changing behavior or doing something that's uncomfortable, that's different from what they're used to. It's like, wow, wouldn't it be nice? You know, it would really be nice if in a year from now, I drop the extra weight that I've been carrying that I want to get rid of. That would be great. I think I'd really like to do that. You know, so that you notice there's no action in there. That's just, we're just saying the thing that would be nice. That's another way that this quality can show up. The possibility can show up as just as a wish. I wish for something like at Christmas time, kids will wish for something from Santa Claus, and you know, a lot of cultures or other holidays. Okay, so but when you move down to the Hara, okay, this is where you're getting down to the guts. This is the level of need This is need. Your guts don't mess around. So when your gut talks, it actually has, and Masami mentioned this maybe even last week, that your gut, 80% of the communication traffic on the vagus nerve is from the gut to the brain, telling the brain what's going on. And hey, brain, get with the program. The gut has its needs and they need to be met now. So when we're dealing with the gut level, and you can think of this as, this might be, if we're looking at head, heart, hara, it might be ego, soul, and spirit, if you want to kind of break it down that way. But that deep level of need is something that we have to really practice listening to. And it's very subtle. And so in this time right now, that's what's being asked of all of us, is to distinguish between these different signals so that we know what aspect of us is trying to communicate. And we can differentiate between something we would prefer, maybe is different, to something that we would like to be true, a possibility we hope will happen, and then something that we really truly need, or what the moment needs right now. So that's a breakdown. This is a work in progress. It's only been around for about 12 hours or so. So we'll see where it goes from here.
I love it. I love it. This is where, I've been teaching in private sessions, like how to muscle test yourself and then distinguish the 3 H's. So what does your head want? Okay. What does your ego want? And an ego loves old patterns. Okay. So ego is always going to say, well, that worked for me, so it should work for me. And then when somebody, let's say if I'm testing a food or something, I have them hold it close to the head. And then your head, your body goes, yes. Okay. And then generally when I bring it to the heart's like a little bit confused, but it'll go along with, okay, if the ego wishes so, then I'm open to that. And it's because heart is always like, I'm open to this. Okay. So then they may lean forward. Okay. But then I bring that same item to the Hara, which is the second chakra area, everyone. Okay. And it's the first Dan Qian for those of you that do Qigong, which is a Dan Qian. Okay. So right in the center of that area. Then your body will go the opposite direction in some cases. Okay. So our job is to go, what am I wishing for in my mind? And then the heart goes, well, if that's your wish, we will go there. If that's what you believe, I want to show up for you. So it's so gentle in its approach. Okay. But then the body says, oh my God, no way. This is poisonous to us. What are you doing? Then your body starts to speak. Okay. Then I have the clients just wait for a moment and I bring it up to the heart, and heart goes, oh, this is not what the body needs. Then the heart will start to match up with the body. Okay. Then in most cases, I can bring it up to the mind, and then mind will actually balance together. Sometimes we'll resist though. We'll resist for like a few more minutes till we do some breathing exercises, then they'll come back. Okay. So we're always trying to create the 3 H's together, H's coming together. So you're not split. Okay. And Chris and I've done the courses before. And then if some of you want to sign up, it's super cheap. It's like $20 for like 4 hours of content. I don't even know, but it's called Sacred Integration, right? Sacred Integration was it that we talked about?
Yeah, Sacred Path.
Sacred Path to Integration. But it's like everybody's split. Your head is doing its own thing. The body is not following. Body is trying to do something else, or the right body is trying to do something. The left side is trying to go somewhere else. The frontal body is different than the back body. I've seen these splits in people's bodies forever. 20 years of working with people. I can just take one look at you and I know where your split lines are. So what we want to do is to integrate you back in. So start practicing your muscle testing, not just from the heart center only, but from the head point, heart point, and a Hara point. And last thing I just wanted to briefly say, honey, is that the WOOP thing, I wanted to bring that up. Is that okay, Chris? Okay. So the WOOP is Gabriel, I wrote it down, Oeting, is that how I say it?
Yeah.
You can write it.
That's-
It's an acronym, everyone. It's called WOOP, okay? And W stands for wish. And she is I believe she's like a Harvard professor in like a psychology and behavior. So it's worth looking at, everyone. And what her point was that you don't want to just do a positive affirmations and just wish for a beautiful outcome. Okay. So many spiritual teachers have taught that. And that was the end of the story. Like, wish good things, believe in it, and then have a positive thinking around it. Well, that alone isn't going to take you for much further than just wishing for it. Okay. Because there's no action involved in it. Right. So this is all comes back to the same thing, everyone. You're going to work on your belief system. You're going to work on your, new way of looking at things. That's great. You got to have a wish. But the next one you need to look at, okay, is the outcome. So what kind of outcome are you looking for? So be specific with the outcome. So this is when, I wish to lose X amount of weight by this time, or, but what is the exact outcome you're looking for from working with me or working with others, or you're going into some, ways that you want to improve yourself? Well, what is it? What is the outcome? So you want to be specific. The next one is the important part. This is where you're going to stop having nightmares about it, is that obstacles. You need to be clear on what are your obstacles. Okay. Is it that I had a client that I was so excited this over the weekend. I was so excited. I was ringing my my glass, water glass with my pen because I was so excited. Is that I told her the outcome that she made up and in her wish was solid. Okay. But when I worked with her, this was her follow-up session. I told her the first session, I said, your biggest obstacle is the fact that you work at night and you have a night shifts, and that you are probably not going to be able to get to the wish and your outcome that you would love to see in your life, as long as you're working one of those, she's was a nurse that had to work at night. And basically her shift started at 7 p.m. till 7 a.m., right? Bless her heart. But this time she got on the call and she said, guess what, Masami? That's the first thing she said. I quit. She could do it. So, financially, she could do this, with her husband's blessings. She did it. And she just looked amazing, amazing already, because she knew the obstacle had to be removed. Okay. So that's the next O. Okay. And what is it? WOOP, right? So P is the plan. You have to have the plan to get to your outcome. What is it that you want to accomplish by March of 2021? Okay. You have a wish. What's the outcome going to look like? What are some of the obstacles you need to be paying attention to? And how are you going to plan to get there? This is where your head is going to get involved, right? This is where your heart has to be in agreement with it. And your Hara, which is going to take the action for you, right? Together. That's what the WOOP is. So you may want to write this down and see if you could move forward towards 2021 with this mindset. Okay, so that's the last thing I wanted to say. And I did have a question that I have to answer, Chris, that came in email, that for a pumpkin pie.
Before we do that, can I just say with WOOP, when you're looking at the plan step, the way you want to understand that, and you can look this up. She has a website that's good, and it outlines all of this too, and you can learn there. But the plan is basically what your action steps are when you come up against the obstacle. So, for example, just if I say I want to exercise daily, that's my wish, and the outcome is I want to increase my cardiovascular health. Then when I get up in the morning and I don't want to exercise, that's when my plan has to kick in, because the obstacle is I don't want to. So when you hit that part, you have to have the plan, which is I get on my shoes and I go and I do my exercise routine anyway. So that would just be an example of how you put that into action.
Yeah, and Anne asked if I teach the integrative in the integrative course that I did. I don't remember, but we did so many things on that course, and Chris did one of the most amazing meditation that lasts about half an hour, and it's about getting in touch with your IntelliKey, which is amazing. His teacher, Gene Houston. I don't know, many of you know Gene Houston. Yeah, that's his teacher. I know, Sarah, right? I got the chills. That incredible Gene Houston taught Chris this meditation. So he guides it through with his own spin on it, and it's most amazing meditation. That alone, you should seriously listen to it. And then but in my 4Bs, I will definitely address the muscle testing, and I will demonstrate it for you guys so that you can see how that looks like for you. Okay. And I just want to, like, totally different story, everyone. I know I have like 2 minutes, but the pumpkin pie recipe, people are like, what the hell, pumpkin pie? How do I make it? Okay. You kind of follow the same recipes that are out there. Okay. Like just your family traditional stuff is fine. But the condensed milk is one of the most poisonous things you can ever put into your body. One of the most poisonous things, okay? So what you do is that you can either get the coconut milk, okay, or coconut cream. Coconut cream can almost substitute it exactly, okay? But what I do is coconut milk, I cook it on the pan, and I condense them, I guess. I evaporate the juice all the way till the amount of the coconut milk becomes 1/3. Okay. So I keep cooking it in a low heat and stirring it till that the water evaporates and makes it into this condensed milk texture. That's about 1/3 of the amount. So that's what I use as a substitute for condensed milk. And you could do the similar thing with the coconut cream, which is almost ready to go, but I would still warm it up a little bit and evaporate some of the water. Then it becomes this really creamy, sticky, sugary thing, basically, that will work just like it. Okay, so that was one of the questions that came in. And then Chris, the one person asked, who are the poets from last week's poems that you read? So could you just tell us those 3 names?
Yeah, so the first one was Meister Eckhart, and that was the longer poem. So Meister Eckhart, I was misremembering. He was a 13th and 14th century Christian mystic. So that's what that one was. The second one, the quote came from Ian McLaren. That was the "Be kind, everyone you meet is carrying a heavy burden." So that's Ian McLaren. And the third one was Henry James, which
Okay,
was
good.
3 things.
And Susan Gage has her hand up. Do you want to come on? I don't know.
I texted her to see if she had a
Okay.
question still, but maybe
Okay, if she does, maybe she could just unmute herself. Okay. But I want Chris to read this really incredible poem, Inayat Khan, which is his lineage of teachers from the Sufi lineage. So I would love for him to read that. You know what, Zazana, am I saying it right? I'm going to have the poems, the authors, on a Facebook page. I'll just write them down for you, okay? So that you can take a look. And then we will post it on the YouTube also, so that you know who the poets are, okay? That we will do that. And yes, I did pull a card. Thanks for reminding me, Sarah. Okay, so this is perfect. You know, when I was talking, I thought, okay, I'm going to pull a card. And the card that came, it's upside down. Is it flipped?
That's good.
Okay, it says mending. Isn't that just perfect? When I saw that, do you know what these 2 girls are doing? It reminds me of my sister and I, like mending things. I grew up in a culture that we mended our own socks and we mended our own shirts. I know I look like I'm a young person, but I sometimes talk like I'm in my 80s, I think sometimes. But I would also always mend my socks, and like shoes and things like that, you know, we'll take it to the shoe guys to get it fixed. I mean, things were so expensive in Japan growing up. And the mending classes were always taught in a class, right? Like we all needed to know how to sew our own socks, and, you know, fix things. But to me, this mending is perfect right now before we go into in the United States towards Thanksgiving and things. It's all about take the time to mend the places in your heart. I think some of us still carry resentment, and we carry some areas of your life that you know you can start to forgive. Okay. And first start with you. Okay. Forgive you for what you couldn't do or did do or forgot to do. Okay. Whatever that may be, start with you. Start forgiving yourself, and start there so that when you do meet up with your families or, you know, holidays and things like that, your heart is mended. Okay. We all have scar tissues, and many of you have heard this before, and Chris could write that word on the chat, but you know I've talked about this many times, everyone, is the idea of kintsugi, right? The word kintsugi is something that I would love for all of you to look up images on Google. And Chris will write that word, kintsugi. K-I-N. Are you writing it, Chris? Okay, so K-I-N-T-S-U-G-I. Okay, kin means gold. Tsugi means to mend, just like these girls are mending. What that means is that when you have a broken china or a teacup, in Japan, we have this practice that's been going on for hundreds of years. They mix melted gold with lacquer, mix it together, make a beautiful golden glue. And they put the pottery back together with these gold veins. Okay? Because we all have scar tissues. We all have breakage inside. See, making me tear up. But you know what the kintsugi does is actually elevates the value of that pot. It actually glorifies it. It makes it, beautifies it. Okay. So we're so beautiful because we all have been broken before. And that's why we are here to mend ourselves with the golden glue. So start mending, everyone. Start coming home to you. This is the week you spend for yourself a little bit more. All right. That's all I got, because otherwise I'm going to start crying again. So Chris, you can read your poem. And
Yeah, let me go into that, just saying that, you know, historically, traditionally, we go into Thanksgiving, hopefully with a sense of gratitude, you know, looking with eyes of gratitude. And I've been working with a lot of people in the world that I'm in. Just there's a lot of desperation out there right now, a lot of hopelessness. And so one thing that I would encourage all of you to look at, because times are moving very fast. It feels like it's that, you know, Facebook has taken over, so it's moving fast and breaking things. And that's just kind of the world that we're in right now. It's so important to have your sense of meaning and purpose intact and very clear to you what that is. And I encourage you to connect with gratitude through that sense of meaning and purpose to something that is here and now. It could be something really small, something very simple, but something tangible here and now, and also with something that's greater than you. So you can define what that is for you, but just see if you can connect to something that can outlast these crazy times. Okay? Because that's what we need. We need to remember that these times are going to pass. So that's what I just wanted to say, that as I come into this poem that I found just kind of by chance. It's never really chance, but this is also Inayat Khan. And he says, I asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for strength, and God gave me difficulties to make me strong. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to learn to solve. I asked for wisdom, and God gave me problems to learn to solve. I asked for prosperity, and God gave me a brain and brawn to work. I asked for prosperity, and God gave me a brain and brawn to work. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for courage, and God gave me dangers to overcome. I asked for love, and God gave me people to help. I asked for love, and God gave me people to help. I asked for favors, and God gave me opportunities. I asked for favors, and God gave me opportunities. I received nothing I wanted. I received everything I needed.
Amen to that. Yeah, amen. We love you. We're so grateful for all of you. Thanks for always showing up. And this week, show up for you, all right? If you've been showing up for us, and if you've been showing up for everybody else, show up for you. And remember that we all are coming together with the golden breakage and the golden scar tissues. So let's see the beauty in that, okay? And what Chris said last week with the second poem, will you just remind us of that before we go into Thanksgiving?
Yeah, this is a
dinner?
good one. Ian McLaren just very simply said, be kind. Everyone you meet is carrying a heavy burden. Be kind. Everyone you meet is carrying a heavy burden.
Yeah, and see if you could see the golden mending in each and every one of us, okay? So happy Thanksgiving. Don't overeat. All right. And I will see you, and Chris and I will see you in 2 weeks because I have the 4B live calls. If you haven't signed up, you probably should.
Actually,
Okay.
3 weeks. We're taking 2 weeks off.
2 weeks off. Oh, that's right. So 30th and what is it?
The 7th.
7th. Yeah. And then we'll be back after that. So, okay, on Monday with Masami. And we probably should say it again.
So you can find those on the website. They're all posted up, the next few of these.
Okay. And then if you think that I should change it to Monday with Masami and Chris, let me know. I'll be more than happy to put him in parentheses. Love you, honey. All right. So love you all.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.